The past has lost its grip. The future creates the present against the backdrop of the past. The past has influence, but no longer controls you. These are just 3 quotes of Lazaris that are part of a larger meme or trend to, in essence, say that it's all about the future. The future is creating the present. And I came away in hearing those statements that the past was a minor issue. The past was a minor focal point, that where we needed to be looking was the future. Lazaris has also said that we're driving forward in evolution, looking back, looking out the rear view mirror rather than looking forward. So let's examine this suggestion, this series of statements that the future is more important than it's ever been, than the past. In many ways, it seems than the present. Eckhart Tolle kind of leads the focus on the now, on the present. So there's a movement to focus on the present, but Lazaris, along with futurists of various kind, their focus, the weight, the emphasis seems to be 90% on the future. So let's examine it. Does the future create the present more than the past? Does the future create the future more than the past? Because that seems to be the underlying assertion. Now, I find geometry, mathematics, to be a useful paradigm in that it's non-partisan, it's non-political. And within the geometrical paradigm, all things begin with one. All things begin with the whole, with the undifferentiated ecology. Everything starts with one. Now, the most elegant representation of one in geometry is the sphere. Wheels are used, and when we say wheels, we automatically mean circles or spheres, because square wheels aren't elegant, because triangular wheels aren't elegant. They convert energy inefficiently into momentum. The circle converts energy into movement more efficiently than any other shape. And if you look closely, our universe is a world of circles. We have the atomic structure with one circle circling another circle. We have the Earth's structure. We have the solar system, a series of circles circling one another. It's a pretty efficient shape. It's more efficient. It's more graceful then. Grace being the efficiency with which energy is transformed into intention. It's more efficient than any other shape. And so the one starts out as a sphere. the beauty of the sphere is its ability to resolve paradox. Because the sphere in computer systems is created by an infinite number of particles, planes, or lines. A computer cannot just create a sphere. It has to approximate a sphere and then create maybe 100 million dots, 200 million dots. It can create as many dots as the chip has the capacity to create the dots, but if you zoom in very, very closely, it's one dot, and another dot, and the eye is connecting the space between. So there is no sphere in a computer system. There are lines, there are dots, and the eye creates the sphere. So you have infinity of the masculine expression, which is particles. The bigger the chip you create, the more dots you can have. And you have one, the sphere. Now, you can cut a sphere in half, and the two halves, by definition, are always equal. You can roll a sphere in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, and on a flat plane, it takes an equal amount of energy. So you have this tremendous flexibility, this tremendous grace. Go anywhere carrying anything with an equal amount of energy, and it will be the lowest amount of energy overall of any geometric shape. So you have a state of grace with the sphere. Now, this is a useful awareness, the awareness that the sphere integrates masculine and feminine equally and synergistically. It integrates the curve and the particle, the wave and the photon. It does a lot. The sphere does a lot, and the universe, or life, expressing itself in the universe, is doing a lot with spheres. Now, if you overlay the sphere onto any process and any system, you can cut the sphere into as many pizza slices, as many shapes as you want, but you cannot make a case with a spherical paradigm that any one thing is more or less important than any other. Meaning, if you look at the geometry of a sphere, you can take a cube out of it here, you can take a bit off of it here, you can slice a piece off of it here. But from a movement perspective, any place you remove a portion of the sphere, there will be a bump. You cut a piece off of your tire, and well, rubber tires will will lose all the air in them. But if you cut a piece off of a steel circular wheel on a train, every time you get to that little bit where you cut it off, there's a bit of a bump. Or if you cut a bit off in the middle or on one side below the rim, when the train is weighed down beyond a certain point, that bit will be vulnerable to corrosion and collapse more than the other areas. And so what the sphere teaches is equality. There's no rational basis for saying this part of the sphere is good, this part of the sphere is bad. This part of the wheel is important for transportation, this part of the wheel isn't. this part of the ecology is unnecessary, this part of the ecology is necessary, right? Because ecology is also a sphere. That's what life is a series of interconnected relationships presented over time in a mutual, synergistic, generative process where life just keeps getting bigger. Life just keeps getting more complex. Bigger and complex. And life just keeps getting more sustainable. I mean, if you thought it was hard to sustain the universe when it was the size of a pea, it's a lot easier today. Meaning, at the size of a pea, if that pea didn't figure out what it was doing, it wouldn't get to be the size of a football, the size of a football field. It wouldn't get to be the size of a planet, let alone trillions upon trillions of planet and bigger sized objects. All of that out of the size of a pea. That's pretty sustainable. When you can figure out how to take a mass of energy this big and organize it in such a way that 25 billion years later, you have all of the known universe, including planets as sophisticated as Earth, well, you've got a design degree at that point, when you can figure that out. And there's no end in stopping, meaning we've been around some tens of billions of years. But what about the next 10 billion years? The next 1,000 billion years? The next trillion years? With a number of exponential curves in the geometry of what's unfolding today, where do we end up with exponential curves in the next 1,000 years, 10,000 years, in the next trillion years? We cannot begin to imagine it. You see, but we don't have to. Life is doing its thing, creating all of this from less than the size of a pea. A pea, by the way, which is spherical, right? Life didn't begin as a triangle. So we refract the one, the sphere, into whatever shape we want. That's on us. That's the refraction process of language. Because the sphere is never really cut up into bits. What we do, applying the pattern analyzing brain, what we do is we take the one and we use language to cut it up in consciousness. Now here's a little experiment for you. Try and think a thought without words. Any thought at all. The tiniest thought, you are red. See cat run. Try and think a single thought without words. And then ask yourself what words are. They're sounds that correlate in our mind with patterns. And when I say this is a finger, what I mean is that's a pointy thing on top of this thing. And what's a point? Well, I say that it is a longer shape that is narrower, but relative to what, right? If we just get really, really, really close, suddenly this gets really big. Now it doesn't feel like a point, it feels like a mass or tower, right? So relative to what? Well, relative to us, right? It's a little pointy thing. Relative to us, Now, what's a reference? Well, the body that we call us, it's maybe 1,000 fingers. So this is little because it's 1,000 times smaller than this. So we're using this and the word that we call this body to compare the finger, right? So we're just randomly cutting things up relative to a random size, except it's not random, it's relative to us. We invented the word body, we invented the word hand, we invented the word finger. And so now you have 3 sizes, and we invented that word too, to measure the continuum of mass in space. It's called size, right? So we made up all these patterns, and then we create relationships between these patterns in our mind. And we think they're real. Now, you know it's not real because the finger can't exist without the hand. The hand, I mean, just try it. Cut off your finger and see if it can move around. Well, then you can call it a dead finger, but not for very long. It will rapidly decay. Well, then you can put it in vinegar or whatever, and you can have a pickled finger. For a while, right? But where did the pickle come from? Where did the vinegar come from, right? It didn't come from the finger. So the pickled finger can't exist without the vinegar. The finger can't exist without the hand. And if you look closely mathematically, nothing can exist without every other thing. No part of the one can exist mathematically without every other part of the one. Now, where am I heading with all this? Lazaris is changing the emphasis from one part of a 3-part system because time is spherical. Physicists know that, but we also know from the geometrical overlay that everything starts out as one. It starts out as the paradigm of time which we invent through language. We invent it. We invent the circle called time. And if time is to be a complete circle, a complete sphere, it must have a loop, a beginning, a middle, and an end, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a circle. It goes round and round. This happened, then this happened, and then this happened, and then the pattern repeated itself. The child was born, it grew up, it died, and then the pattern repeated itself. Right? So for movement in a spherical shape, you can take the sphere and you can cut it into as many pizza pieces as you want. And some pieces can be bigger than others. But you cannot say that the left side of the pizza is less important for eating a pizza than the right side. That the past is more important than the present. So in the triangle, what past, present, and future does is it takes the one, time, it cuts it into 3 pizza slices. And then there is a philosophical debate that is an illusion as to which pizza slice is the most important. You know, Eckhart Tolle would say the present is more important than the future or the past because there's only now. Historians archaeologists of all kind would say that the most important thing is the past because everything in the present was once in the past and is a byproduct of the past. And Lazaris is saying that the future is the most important thing. That the future creates the present against the backdrop of the past. Now, as a mathematician, if you cut the sphere into 3 parts, they are equal parts. If you divide 1 into 3, you get 3 equal parts. If you don't, it's because you don't know how to cut well, right? Make this cake into 3 equal parts. Well, you've got the bigger piece. I want that piece, right? Because you couldn't coordinate the knife well. But in the abstract, in the ideal, you divide 1 into 3 and you get 3 exactly equal parts. Now, how do you come back to 1? How do you go back home? How do you rejoin the sphere? Well, you have to reconnect all the pieces and figure out where they go. Because the real journey home is in our minds. It's in our consciousness, meaning our consciousness is composed of language. You cannot think a single basic thought, not one, in your entire life without words. And your words, given to you by your cult, your culture, your words take the one and cut it into 100 billion pieces. This is star number AC36. You see, it's different from star number A35. A35 is here. We're cutting space up. We're cutting time up. Because they are moving in slightly different speeds and we're cutting space up. We're cutting time up. We're cutting the light spectrum up. We're cutting reality up with language. And in all those pieces, we can't figure out how it all goes back together again. And as we do, we return home. As we transcend the pattern organizing brain of language, we return to the state of grace. The awareness, the interconnected awareness in which the sphere has never been actually cut up. Meaning we've cut it up in our minds, and our minds have become fragmented with pieces of a puzzle that was once one. And here we are, trying to figure out which pieces to combine with which pieces to create more sustainable well-being, the ultimate human ambition to create more sustainable well-being, more consciously, to figure out what happens when this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, so that ultimately we can put it all together again in a new way that restores the state of grace. But we're taking it apart at the same time with language. So Lazaris is saying that the word future, that the domain of time, the 1/3 of time in the past, present, future triangle, is where it's at. Now, mathematics says that when you want things to move forward, like if you take your car into the tire shop for a rebalancing, what they basically do is they spin the tire fast and they say, you know, the tire is heavier on this side. And so this side is off balance. You need to weight this side because it's putting stress on the axle. And if you just put a little bit of weight over here, you can't take the weight off over here, but you can add a little bit of weight over here. Now the tire spins gracefully, meaning it takes less energy to spin the tire just as fast, and there's less wear and tear on the axle because you're now back to center. And why do you do it? Why would you take time out of your life to go to the tire shop? Why would you pay them money? Because your car wobbles less. There's less noise. There's less vibration. You spend less energy on electricity or gasoline or diesel to run the engine that runs those tires if they're balanced. So you could say the state of grace is the state of balance in which any part of the system is equally weighted. That birth is valued as much as death. That beginnings are valued as much as endings. That middle-aged people are as valuable as young people, are as valuable as old people. That the inner world is as valuable as the outer world. That the masculine is as valuable as the feminine. That women are as valuable as men. That black is as valuable as white. Whatever way you cut the system into pieces, that when you put them back together again, they're each equally important. You know, if an engine is circular, and most of what comes out of human engineering is not circular, because we're looking in linear chauvinistic lenses that value one part more than another. And so in that system, it seems that one thing is more important than another. But if you apply the geometric lens, the past is as valuable as the present is as valuable as the future, and vice versa, right? If you've got three equal parts, they're all equal. Makes sense. So the past has lost its grip. The future creates the present. Now, Lazaris has talked in other programs and in other contexts about the importance of both and rather than either or thinking. That either or thinking is chauvinistic, right? It's that blind spot that thinks that one is more important. But Lazaris is focused on de-emphasizing the past and emphasizing the future. Now, from a rebalancing point of view, in a culture that focuses on cause and effect, which leads to the past, right? Because if you believe that the past causes the present in a paradigm of cause and effect, most of the focus is going to be on the past. So the focus needs to pivot to the future, because the present and the past are getting a lot of attention and awareness, but the future, less so. Now, in a rebalancing protocol, you would, of course, focus on the area that's getting the least amount of attention. That's how you rebalance something. You take the thing that's given the least attention and you give it more attention. And it becomes bigger in consciousness. And then the responses to it become bigger. And you heal the imbalance, healing, holing, returning to the circle. You take the half and you bring in the other half, and you heal the one in consciousness and in your personal reality. So if we look through that lens, we can know with certainty that the past, the present, and the future are each equal refractions of thought in the circle of time, in the sphere of time. And as equal refractions of thought, because that's all we're really cutting up. We don't cut up time when we say that's in the past and that's in the present and that's in the future. Time is, and it's all interconnected. Just as this finger cannot survive without the hand, that can't survive without the body, that can't survive without oxygen, which can't survive without trees, which can't survive without a planet, a solar system, a galaxy, a universe, space, time, anything you can imagine. This finger cannot live without it. Gravity disappears, so does this finger. Gravity intensifies, this finger changes. Time speeds up, this finger changes. Time slows down. It's all interconnected. Language is the delusion of distinct patterns that are in fact in a complex ecology with one another and are in fact far more complex than the language can apprehend. Meaning I say finger, but that's for my benefit. Because if I start to describe the trillions of moving subatomic particles that are in relationship that generate this finger, I can't even talk for an hour before, first of all, 99% of the subatomic particles haven't been discussed in that hour. And secondly, they've all changed and moved, become other subatomic particles in the time I was trying to capture the one. So I say finger as an approximation, as a crude approximation that takes the complexity of energy that's in and around this area into something that you and I can move on from. But it's complete and utter bullshit, right? It's just a placeholder for you and me to agree on something. That's a finger. Yeah, that's a finger. Let's link fingers, right? We can direct energy through that word. We can communicate. But very, 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 very crudely. We haven't even got 1/1,000,000th of the data across in that word finger. We don't even have the movement correlated of a single atom within the finger. All we can get across is that's a pointy thing that's on that other bit, that's on that other bit, and let's do something with it, right? So it's an adequate symbol. Is the future creating the present against the backdrop of the past? Yes. Is the present creating the future against the backdrop of the past? Yes. Is the past creating the present against the backdrop of the future? Yes. Right? So an intelligent, competent exploration of time values each moment in time equally. Now, it isn't saying that each moment moves equally, but imagine you've got a chain that's going on infinitely and it's under some tension. If you cut the chain over here, the chain falls apart. If you cut the chain here, the chain falls apart. Now imagine that chain is a mathematical equation. 1 + 3 - 10 - 47 multiplied by 2 divided by 10,008 multiplied by 2 divided by 10,007. an endless mathematical chain. But because we like things to be done, we like to complete something, we decide, okay, that's enough. We're going to stop the mathematical equation right here and let's get a total. And the total is 3,208,000. Ah, good. You know, the chain is complete. The equation is finished, right? Not really. It just keeps moving on. Our mind has stopped by framing the equation that way. Okay, so we've got 10,000,008. Is there a single digit in the entire 10 million digit equation that you can remove and still get 10,008? No. Every single deletion of every point of the equation gives you a different number. Now, if the important thing is the 10,008,000, you have to say that every single number in there is necessary for that outcome. Take the possibility field. This is possible, this is possible, this is possible, this is possible. The possibility field is always spherical. We say this is good and this is bad. Let's take a car. We increase the possibility field. We take out the VW engine that can go up to 98 miles an hour, the old Beetles, and we replace it with a Tesla Model S Plaid that can go over 200 miles an hour. And we can now get to our destination 2 times faster. We've doubled the possibility field in terms of speed. But how many roads can you drive 200 miles an hour on? Can you get 200 miles an hour with traffic, right? So in that particular context, it's not necessarily very relevant. But the point here in mathematics and balance is that you're increasing the speed of going where you want to go, but you're also increasing the speed at which you hit a deer. In other words, when you go from 100 mile per hour capacity to 200 mile per hour capacity, you have the capacity to drive from Texas to Canada 2 times faster. But you also have the capacity to hit a deer 2 times faster. You have the capacity to do anything within that probability field 2 times faster. You can drive into a nail 2 times faster. You can hit a child 2 times faster. You can beat the stoplight 2 times faster. You can overtake a car 2 times faster, right? A possibility field is circular. If you increase the ability for you to see in one direction by a mile, if you turn your head, you can now see in this direction. Your eyes are capable of seeing an extra mile here. If I want to see what's happening good in the future, and so I increase my foresight to see more of what's good, I also see what's bad. Meaning when you take the 1 and you cut it in half, you have 2 equal parts of the sphere. Good and bad is a dualistic paradigm. It just means you've taken the whole, you've cut it in half, and now there are 2 parts of the whole, and they are equal. Right? If you divide the 1 into 2, you get 2 equal parts. So all dualistic paradigms have equal halves. Now, the cult emphasis, the individual emphasis, the cult emphasis likes to usually pretend or focus more on one half than another. That's chauvinism. That's pretending that this half of the orange is bigger than this half of the orange. It can't be, or you didn't really cut it in half. So, if you see more of what's good, you've created a paradigm where half of the world is bad and half of the world is good, so you're also going to then see more of what's bad. Unless you put filters and blind spots, etc., to distort the equation. Possibility fields are always circular. Now, one of the great attempts of egos, of cultures, of dogmas throughout history is to increase the possibility field and talk about only the positive within a paradigm of good and bad. Computers are going to bring freedom of information to everyone. Everyone can go up and look up anything they want. And that's good, that's freedom. But we won't look at the depression that correlates with time in front of a screen, right? That freedom was supposed to make us feel better. But it seems like the more hours people spend in front of Facebook and other screens, the less good they feel. But it's freedom, but it feels bad, right? And so you can look at things in whatever way you want. It's just language. But if you delete one possibility in a possibility field, the possibility field collapses. The entire universe is a possibility field. If you delete yourself from it as a possibility, the entire field collapses. If you delete any possibility from the possibility field, the entire field collapses. The equation, it's like a train, right? This cart is linked to this cart, is linked to this cart, is linked to this cart. If you take out the middle cart, there's no more links from the carts in front and behind, right? So the train is broken. The locomotive can go with what remains. But if you take out one part, the whole is broken. If you delete one digit in the equation, the total is different. It's a different possibility field. It shrinks or expands as a sphere in all directions simultaneously. So if I don't want to see what's happening a mile away, and I've got 2-mile vision, I look out, it's happening. I don't want to see it. Well, I can create 300-yard vision. That's good. Now I don't see it. It's no longer in view. But with 300-yard vision, I can't see the thing that's happening a mile away over here or over here. The possibility field has collapsed to the lowest common denominator. You can't have freedom if you want people to do what you want them to do. Because one of them might not, one of the times, because that's freedom. So if you have freedom, you have the possibility of not doing this thing that you wanted the freedom for, as well as the freedom to do it it moves out in all directions. So the past is creating the present is creating the past is creating the future is creating the past. The present is creating the future is creating the present. It's all equal. Now, let's look at the examples. A few years ago, I fell down the stairs, chased by a washing machine. Now, the past helped to set up that situation, meaning if nobody had invented washing machines, I couldn't have fallen down the stairs chased by a washing machine. If nobody had invented stairs, I couldn't have fallen downstairs. The stairs were created in the past. The washing machine was created in the past. The idea of washing clothes in washing machines was created in the past, not the future. The future didn't invent washing machines. They're already invented. Now, the present is looking at the future and the past equally. Now, what I'm saying right now makes no sense without the past. How do you know that? Well, just watch a video, make a cut of this, play this clip. What I'm saying right now. Stop the clip. Play it again. What I'm saying right now makes no sense without the past. Meaning this sentence means something to you because of what I've said before. Now, what I'm saying right now makes no sense without the future. Why would you watch this now if you didn't think it had something to do with your future? Maybe it's helping you avoid a future. Like, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to think, so let me do something that will help me not have that future. Or, I want to have this future, and this is what I think is the way to get there for these and these reasons. It has to do with the future. The past has ended. No, it hasn't. One is more important than the other. Only to the extent that rebalancing is necessary. Meaning, if you dwell in the present all the time, one of the things that's interesting to look at in global geography is why it is that New York or London tends to have a much better grip on the future on money than Bali or Thailand or Mexico, for that matter. Why is it that cold cultures in cold climates tend to be better at strategic thinking? And you look at what is strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is an organized pattern of thought that leads to an organized pattern of behavior that aims the present towards a distant future. Because you don't really need a strategy if whenever you get hungry, you look up and there's a coconut tree. Whenever you want some fish, you throw a line in. And great, you're in paradise, but you don't have to have a strategy. if you're in Thailand. And they don't. If you spend time in Thailand, you'll find people, why you think too much? Relax. Never mind. It's okay. Mai belai ka. Don't worry about it. Things happen. Just move on, right? And in a temperate climate where you don't get 3 feet of snow, and there's enough food and warmth and shelter for everyone, there's enough land, enough food, why worry about the past? Why stress about the future? Now, someone in a New York summer might have the same attitude. So nice on the beach, lake is warm, it's beautiful. But come December, come January, as 1, 2, 3, 4 feet of snow, sub-zero temperatures. What do I do? What do I do? I want a coconut. It's not there, right? So trauma through volatility, because that's what we're talking about, temperature volatility. When you have a volatile ecology that's too hot and then too cold, you can be in the present, and you can enjoy being in the present until it gets too hot. And you can't respond to it because it's bigger than you. And you realize, I've got to get an umbrella. Now, when you're back in the present, when it's comfortable, you don't need an umbrella. But your body is telling you, remember how traumatic it was to nearly fry to death, to get all that sunburn? Go get the umbrella now. Now's your chance. Now, the same is true when it comes to gathering firewood. So nice on the beach. It's so nice to swim. Yes, but you can't get firewood in 3 feet of snow. It's so much harder. Now's the chance. Quick, before the tsunami, before the winter, before you freeze to death, before you lose another 3 fingers to frostbite. Now, get up. I know you don't want to move now, but get up. Get moving. Build the shack. Gather the wood. Dry it. Gather matches. Can some food. You can't pick peaches in 3 feet of snow. Can food. So, volatile ecologies demand forethought. They reward forethought. All of the people who live in the now die in New York winters. The people who read a book, how to survive a snowstorm, how to do this, the people who study this, the people who buy snow tires, they live. And so future thought, future thinking, discipline, that's what discipline is. I don't want to get up off the beach, but you've got to do it because that's how you're going to survive. I don't want to plan for retirement. This is a cold culture. It'll put you on the street in a heartbeat if you don't have the money to buy a house and to pay enormous taxes on that house. You better do what you don't want to do now so that the future is such that you can survive. Because the trauma of the past, the biology of the past, says, that's what I did last year and I didn't make it through. That's what Kevin did. You know, remember Uncle Kevin? He didn't prepare for the future and he's dead. He thought it would all just work out. In his mind, it was always summer. But then came 3 feet of snow. And so what you find is that businesses that have the longest vision, the greatest forethought, You know, Amazon lost money for more than 10 years. Many businesses cannot afford or don't have a 10-year time frame, but those that do, that can anticipate and coordinate with 10-year trends, can ultimately grow enormously big. But how many people want to work 80-hour weeks, losing money for 10 years while they get big? Well, that's, often scarcity, pain, trauma breaks the cycle of living in the moment. I was so peaceful in my innocence. And then Dad hit me over the head with a baseball bat. And I realized I can't live in my own little world. I've got to pay attention to what the giant is doing, to what the giant is drinking. And I'm no longer 100% in the present from that moment on. I am strategizing. Let's hide the baseball bat. Let's push the beer further back in the shelf. Let's try and get Dad to go out and work in the vegetable garden. Let's try and get Dad to talk about what's on his mind, because I will do anything to not get hit over the head with a baseball bat and have nowhere to go. So scientifically, Lazaris is incorrect. There is an equal basis for past, present, and future. Politically, Lazaris may be right on target. It depends on each individual. Politically, if your tire is focused on the past and the past and the past, and 90% of your attention is on the past, 90% of the weight is on the past, then to say it's all about the future, which is a lie, if that leads to a rebalancing, then the lie is more correct than the truth. What is truth? It's just language. It's just symbols. It's patterns of energy. And some patterns of energy are more graceful than other patterns of energy. Is it a lie if it leads to sustainable well-being, when that's what we all want? So I leave you with that.